Welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today we're going to look at our horrible Homelite. This is the ugliest saw I've ever drug home. Even beats my old Poland and several others. We were at a engine and tractor show recently, and the head honcho of the club came over and donated this to one of the members. And he didn't want it. He knew I collected saws, so he donated it to me. And right here it says Homelite Super XL automatic, and also here, and so I thought that's what it was, but it actually isn't. This cover had been changed at some time, but looking at the patina of the saw, it looks identical. And it's actually a real early XL12. And Smitty from Smitty's Chainsaws and Firewood gave me some tips on how to tell for sure. So anyway, I wiped it down a little bit, but you can see the bar is really rusty and no chain. And the exhaust is just a straight pipe here, and some even cut out some of the pieces in there to have less resistance. So it's just an exhaust stack. And while I was there, get an old saw, and it's got a steel muffler on it. You want to point it down or forward depending on where the muffler's at, so if there's any rust in it when you pull it through, it won't junk out your saw. Well, I turned this on its side and pulled it through. It had no compression. It made this terrible screeching sound, so I just figured it was a junk parts saw. So anyway, after we got home the next day, I decided to come out and check it out. And so I pulled the plug out of it and put a little oil in there, and the thing that I use is penetrating oil, real high quality stuff, and some thin oil. It can either be motor oil or Marvel Mystery Oil. And what that does is it'll dissolve the varnish on the rings, and that's what it did on this. It's got really good compression now. And I checked it, had spark, so I actually put a little gas in it and it popped right off amazingly. But like I say, this thing is really horrible. But I'm going to take the side cover off here and show you how bad it is. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, well, you can see the bar oil and sawdust mix in here is just caked in there terribly. And like I say, when I first checked this thing, the recoil turned out to be making all the noise. And if it's not real dirty inside of here, which this one isn't, I put penetrating oil in it and let it go down in, and then I turn it back on, pull it through, and that oil will work its way in. And then on top of that, I put motorcycle chain lube in, and it goes in as an oil, and after it sits for a while, it actually turns up to a light grease. And so you can, works perfect, no noise. And the insulation on the kill wire is starting to come off too, so I'll have to fix that up. But just look at that, it's terrible. It's terrible people don't maintain stuff. There's a few scrapes there, and I got a big pile of it. There's still a whole bunch in here. It's all down through here, and then through here, and on the coil. Which isn't too awfully bad, but anyway, I use an air nozzle with a real thin tip, which I've shown in other videos, and I get down in here and blast all this crap right out of here. And then the other thing that I'll do is take off the side cover and the bar. And this has been broken here and there. Again, you can see all that debris in there. Pretty substantial rust, but I have a process. I'm going to show you what I do here to get rid of this. And then the bar plates, they got big cuts in them. They're both junk. Okay, this is probably the worst saw I've ever drug home. And it's just caked in here all around the clutch. And it must have used for years with no cleaning on it. So anyway, we'll be back and show you some other problems. Okay, well, the other thing is we got to check for carbon in the exhaust. Okay, well, you can see there's a lot of carbon in here, but the piston looks as clean as it can be, and the bore looks really good on it. And actually the fins on the cylinder are actually clean all the way through. I'm really shocked because much crap is in this thing. It's really surprising. And here, it's a muffler. You can see right through it. It's not really a muffler, it's just an exhaust stack. But there's quite a bit of carbon in here. So we need to clean that all out too. Anyway, well, we'll clean up the carbon out of the port there and we'll be back in a bit. Okay, well, we get it all cleaned up. You see it's nice and clean all the way down inside there. All around here, all through the fins, everywhere. Using an air nozzle like this makes it a lot better because you can get in behind here and clean all that stuff in behind out of the flywheel without having to take it apart. You can get it down underneath the cylinder, through the fins, everything. And you can see that came out real nice. All of this debris is just a little bit that was right here, and then there's two side covers, and at least this much or more came out with the compressed air when I blew out all the crap out of the saw. So anyway, we'll be right back when we get the side cover back on. Okay, well, just about ready for a smoke test. So I put oil in here. You can see that squirts oil good, so the manual oiler works good. Got all the carbon out of the exhaust port. Another thing that's really unusual on this saw is the spark plug. When I first saw it, I thought it was broke off, but the porcelain's made so that there's just a little pin down in the center. And then on the spark plug wire, same thing. There's just a little hole in the center, and then the rubber wraps around this little groove here to hold it in place. And it's a Champion. It's a TJ8J, but that was before they had the regular short plugs like they have now today. So anyway, what we're going to do here in just a bit, give it the smoke test. Air filter's not too bad, a little bit of debris down in here, but okay. Well, what I like to do after a saw's been sitting for years is that, you know, I guess the first thing a lot of people do is take the plug out, squirt some gas down to see if it'll light off, but that doesn't lube any of the bearings or the seals on the inside of the engine. So what we're going to do on this, piston's up, so we're going to give it a couple little squirts. That's two-stroke mix, by the way. Put the plug back in. So we can do that. And you can see that fits way down under this shield, so it's out of your way of your hand. If it had a full-size plug on it, would be different. So anyway, I'll get the carburetor here. We'll spray some down in the carburetor. And with the ignition switch off, we'll pull it through to draw some of the fuel mixture in there. And then we'll turn the switch on and see if it'll start here. There you go. That way seals are not dry. You can see it runs good, so I'll have to rebuild the carburetor, do some more things to it. So basically the saw is done other than cleaning the exhaust system out, but we need to do some work on the bar. So here's what I do for that. Get this all set up and be back in a minute. Okay, well, we're going to use our old vintage Sears grinder here to take off the heavy rust. Safety glasses and just to keep the dust out of our lungs, the rust. You can see that takes it right down to the metal. Then the next step that I do, I have this tube and I have a hole here. We stick a dowel through there, but I fill it with vinegar and then I'll suspend the bar or whatever else I'm cleaning in there like this. It takes about a week. It'll be right down to the bare metal. It'll leave a weird black patina on it, but it comes right off. But I used to use muriatic acid, pretty nasty stuff. It's just much better. So the other thing we're going to do on this, while we got it off, I'm going to check the rails here. So I'll be right back. Okay, well, we got rust on the top here, so I'm using sandpaper to clean off the heaviest stuff. Looks like they're kind of pitted. Then what we're going to do, use this tool here. It has a file in here, and you put it on here, and it goes flat against the bar. And you go like this. This bar were not rusty, what I would do is use a marker pen and darken it up, and then you can see the high and low spots or side to side, because the file will take off the marker or show the shiny metal, and so this is going to take a lot of work. So I just wanted to show the way to do that. Now you can see it coming right here. It's starting to get shiny, so it's actually fairly square. I'm surprised. Down here, not quite as much, but anyway, always wear your gloves because you got metal shards here. And then one other thing we're going to check real quick here is to see how wide it is. So I'll get a screwdriver here. Go down here to take out the heavy rust. Use our caliper here to check the distance. Now this is supposed to be 0.50, so we'll check it and see what we come up with here. Okay, that's at 61, 63, 60. Well, that's going to need some squeezing together. We have a special tool for that I'll show when we get on this. But anyway, I just wanted to show you the challenges of an old chainsaw, and what I thought was just a complete piece of junk actually is going to turn out really good, but it's just going to be big, old, and ugly. So remember, well, this saw is kind of an anomaly. When Ed gave it to me, we both looked at it and it said Super XL Auto on it. we both assumed that's what it was because we didn't look at any of the real features on it and whatnot. And so when I started working on it, I noticed that it had a real early style exhaust on it and manual oiling only. And so I started doing a little research on it, but I contacted a couple of Homelite experts and gave them the number off the serial plate here, and they said that the cover here was off a 1970 model, but other parts of the saw didn't match it, so we started to do a little research on it. And when we looked at it, we just assumed the cover was correct because if you look at the patina on it, it's the same. So anyway, when we started really looking into it, the features of the real early saws, number one is the exhaust here, because they went to a regular muffler in 1965, I find. And then inside the fuel tank, the pickup has a wick, which is a big gauze pad in the bottom, which this has. And then shortly thereafter they went to a regular filter off a line. And the side cover here, where the oil tank is, and there's a real Super XL, and this has an oil fill on the top. The reservoir area here is a lot wider through here than here, and of course this one fills on the bottom, and the reservoir is down here on the bottom. And then the other thing is different. This has a regular muffler. There's several different styles that they used on these, and this one has automatic and overriding oiler. There's a button here, but anyway, this one doesn't. And then the other thing that kind of clinched the deal is the spark plug. Takes a real oddball plug here. This is a Champion TJ8J, and you can see the upper part of it doesn't have it. It has a pin in the center, and it's very short. That's so that it had hand clearance down here. If you had a long plug in here, it'd be sticking out in the way. And when I looked this up, this is the correct plug for an early saw. The other weird thing is that the spark plug wire here, it has a small pinhole to match the plug, and then the rubber boot fits around this groove right here. But it says AC on it, so AC Delco. So it had a Champion spark plug with a Delco plug wire on it. And one of the things that I did some research on it, these are really handy. And this is a fairly early one, so when I looked up in the Homelite section, it showed the early saw like this with manual oiling only. And then in 65, as an extra cost option, you could actually get the automatic oiling. So that clinched it. So this, instead of just being a common as dirt XL12, turns out to be one of the very first Super XLs because of all the weird features on it. So anyway, turns out to be a kind of a semi-rare saw. So anyway, we'll be back here in a sec. Well, since this saw is such an old rat and doesn't have the correct side cover on it, I decided that this is going to be a new type of saw for me. Rat saw. There's a lot of guys have rat rod trucks and cars and have old paint and hinges on the doors from a hardware store and just all kinds of junk on them. And to a certain degree, motorcycles and even vintage bicycles. So here we go. This is going to be RAT-SAWZILLA. I'm going to leave it completely like it is. I'm going to service the bar and put a chain on it, but I'm going to leave the rust on here. And then the surprising thing of all this is that mechanically it's okay. It's got a lot of time on it. It's kind of tired, but it does have good compression and whatnot. So let's see if it'll run. Well, let's see if it'll start. Now this thing, this is the loudest old chainsaw I've ever run. So it's a real noise maker. So let's see what happens here. Well, that'll wake the neighbors up. Okay, remember, a vintage is good even if it looks like this and it's no good. We'll see you on the next video.